everybody, my name is Zeffler and today we're going to be talking about how to itemize correctly in the mid lane. Now this video is going to be directed more towards newer players of Wild Rift than those of you who are more experienced and know all about the items, but I know that as a new player, items can be super overwhelming and it's easy just to click on those top ranked loadouts and just keep clicking at the shop and not really know what it is you're buying or why you're buying. So today we're going to take a quick look at all the mage items and in real simple detail, nothing too in depth, just to make sure that you know exactly what you're buying and if it's the right situation. So let's take a quick look at those items. Starting off with Luden's Echo, gives you a lot of ability power, that magic penetration, and really importantly, it gives you 300 mana. Now that mana comes from the Lost Chapter that you build before finishing Luden's Echo. That mana is really useful for staying in lane, making sure that you can spam your abilities to take good trades, but also to clear the wave without having to worry too much about your mana issues. And also ability haste. Now a lot of these items also have a unique effect. So with Luden's Echo, we've got this Discordic Echo. So moving and casting abilities builds Discord at 100 Discord. Your next damaging attack or empowered attack deals bonus magic damage plus 10. That little plus 10 just means ability power. Plus 10%. You don't need to worry too much about building that stacks up. It happens passively as you move around and cast spells, but this is a really good first item for most mages. There's a few mages that you won't build this on early, but we'll talk about those later on in the video. Moving on to Infinity Orb. Now this item is really good against teams that don't have too much frontline or maybe a team full of squishies because of its inevitable demise passive. So abilities and empowered attacks critically strike for 20% bonus damage against enemies below 35% health. This is really good for finishing off enemies, getting those killing blows with that little bit of extra damage. So and enemies sometimes don't expect that burst of damage then. So really good item against squishy champs. Moving on now to the big daddy of mage builds. This is Rabadon's Death Cap. You get 100 ability power as well as the magic penetration that you get on your mage items. But the big draw here is the Overkill passive. Increases ability power by 20 to 45%. That is a huge spike for your abilities dealing. You'll see a huge increase in the amount of damage that you're dealing with this build. So it's almost a non-negotiable at this stage. This should be at least one of your first 3 items as a mage. We should really quickly touch on your boots as well because they are really important in lane. I like to build them first before I start building any of my core items, and the reason is you get 55 ability power, 150% mana regeneration, 45 movement speed, as well as attacks and active abilities dealing 18 bonus physical damage to minions, which is really good for clearing those waves. And it's 900 gold after you build your starting item. So usually we'll start Amp Totem, which will just be recommended to you in the shop, and after you get 900 gold you can recall, get your boots, and that is a quick power spike for your laning phase. So boots really important. Now the order in which you build your core items does matter. So I would say usually in a standard mage build you'll always start with your Luden's Echo. It's just so good for clearing waves. It's a big burst of damage, good power spike when you get that in lane. Now you have a choice to make whether you want to go straight into Rabadon's Death Cap for that ability power spike or Infinity Orb second. For me, it completely depends on the composition of the team I'm against. My rule of thumb is if they've got more frontline than they have squishies, I'll build Rabadon's second. And if they have more squishies and I'm rolling and I'm doing really well, I'll build Infinity Orb second just to keep the burst damage and the pressure on. But that is personal preference. You can play around with that. I suggest you do that and see what works for you. But that is just my personal preference and my cheeky little rule of thumb that I like to abide by. Now that we've got our core build set up, we move on to the situational items. These are items that you want to see what the state of the game is, the composition of the enemy team, and kind of change them up game to game depending on your needs. So the first of those, big fan favorite, is the Crown of the Shattered Queen. The reason that this is such a popular item is because of its Safeguard passive. Grants a spell shield that blocks the next hostile ability, as well as that, after the shield breaks, incoming damage is reduced by 40% for 1 second. Now 1 second doesn't sound like a whole lot of time, but when everything happens so fast in Wild Rift, for example, let's just use Ahri. Ahri ults in, charms, and throws her first ability out. So the charm is going to get blocked. First of all, you're not going to get CC'd, but also the damage from her first ability is reduced by 40%, which is huge. So this is really important item for survivability. Really good against things like charms, really good against teams that might have hooks, so Nautilus, Blitzcrank, Thresh, and any CC ability that might be in the team's composition. This is just a little bit of a get out of jail free card if you happen to miss position, or just in those team fights that you're caught off guard, they can give you an extra second or two of survivability to use your flash defensively and get away. Really, really key item is the Crown of the Shadow Queen. As well as that, you get your ability power, magic penetration, some mana, and ability haste. Our next item is Ocean's Trident. This is a really great item against team compositions that have a lot of shielding because of the lethal weapon passive. Dealing ability damage to any champion reduces any shields they gain for 3 seconds. That is really, really great against team compositions that might have a Janna, a Karma, Seraphine, anything that, like even tanks that are using Gargoyle, Stoneplate, a Scion, for example. Any shielding, this can really reduce the effectiveness of that. What's really important as well is when you damage an enemy who is unaffected by lethal weapon that is this passive, all shields on them are reduced by the same values. So even if they have a shield on them, when you hit them, their shields get reduced by that amount, which is really, really key as well. So this is a really good item for a team that is full of shielding abilities. Moving on now to the most unnecessary name in all of Wild Rift, Morellinomicon. One take wonder, baby. This one is exactly like the Ocean's Trident, except for healing. So Affliction. Dealing magic damage to enemy champions inflicts 50% grievous wounds. Grievous wounds is just what they call anti-heal. Some abilities also have grievous wounds built into them. For example, the Varus third ability has anti-heal built into it. This is a really good item against things like Soraka, Yuumi, Nami, those really annoying healing champions that just keep seeming to keep the tanks alive and carries alive. So this is a really good item into those healing champs. Moving on, we come to Liandry's Torment. Now, this is a really, really great item against enemies who are stacking health, for example, basically any tank, or something like a Swain who is building health through his passive. The Torment passive, damaging abilities or empowered attacks deal a certain amount of math of enemies' max health as bonus magic damage each second over 3 seconds. So this is a lingering damage over time passive. This is really good on champions like Morgana, Zyra, Aurelion Soul, things that are brand, things that do damage over time anyway, and kind of always tick the Liandry's passive on it. So Brand, for example, his abilities already deal damage over time, so each bit of that damage over time triggers a new Liandry's passive. So that's why sometimes when you're playing against a brand and they've got Liandry's, when you're trying to recall, it feels like you can't recall for about 5 seconds because of that damaging tick. So this is a really great item on champions who already do damage over time and against tanks or people who are stacking health. Next, we come to the Awakened Soul Stealer. This is a fun little item that you're not going to build on every champion, but it can be really useful on people like Lissandra or even Ahri, and people who basically want to come in and out of team fights as and when their cooldowns come up. Every time you take down an enemy champion, taking down an enemy champion, by the way, is not just killing them, it also counts if you get an assist. So getting an assist is also a takedown. Every time you take down an enemy champion within 3 seconds of damaging them, your ability cooldowns are reduced by 25%. So you get refunded 25% of your abilities cooldowns when you kill somebody. As well as that, you steal 10% of their movement speed for 10 seconds and 50% of their ability haste until they respawn. So as well as getting the cooldowns refunded in the team fight, you get 50% of their ability haste as well. So the next time that you cast that ability, the cooldown will be even less. So really good on people like Ahri who want to come in and out of team fights, who don't deal constant damage. Lissandra as well, who wants to kind of keep bursting people down, coming in and out of team fights. So it's a really fun item. I would play around with this with certain champions that you feel that might be useful on, and see how you get on. Next we come to Cosmic Drive. Now this item gives a lot of ability haste and movement speed, so really good on those champions that you want a little bit more movement speed to maybe chase down the enemy, or to make sure that you get away, keep that spacing, keep kiting the enemies away. So active abilities and empowered attacks grant 30 plus 70% ability haste as movement speed, so every time you cast a spell you gain a burst of movement speed. This movement speed decays over 2 seconds, and each source has an individual 1 second cooldown for triggering. So each source, i.e. each spell, can only trigger the effect once every 1 second. Only haste from items contribute to spell weaving's movement speed. So, for example, the ability haste that you get from Awakened Soul Stealer won't stack on this passive. It's only the ability haste that you get from your items will contribute to the movement speed that you get. Really, really good item on people like Vladimir and Rise, and those champions who you want a bit of movement speed to keep kiting or to chase the enemies down. Next we come to Riftmaker. Now this item is really good on champions who want to be consistently in the fight and are dealing consistent damage. I'm thinking of things like Aurelion Sol, I'm thinking of Rise, even Rumble in the top lane. Really like this item, and the reason is you want to be in combat to let the passive stack. So the passive is, when in combat with champions, gain 1 stack of corruption every 1 second. Each stack increases the damage you do by 2.5% up to 3 stacks, so you gain up to 7.5% extra damage. At maximum stacks, the additional damage provided by corruption becomes true damage. Now what we mean by true damage is the damage that you deal ignores armor and it ignores magic resistances, so really, really good for shredding through tanks and enemies who have built that little bit of extra magic resistance. Now, Archangel's Staff, this is a really key item for mages that like to scale. So I'm talking about Orianna, I'm talking about Rise. It's a mana stacking item, meaning that it comes from Tear of the Goddess. Now, the Tear of the Goddess passive, when you use an ability, you get some mana back, but it also increases your maximum mana pool permanently up to 700 stacks. Now, when you reach 700 stacks, Archangel's Staff changes into Seraph's Embrace, which has a really cool passive. Grants ability power equal to 3% maximum mana. So we mean stacking mana, and we're going to get a lot of ability power equal to 3% of that. As well as that, it refunds 25% of all mana spent. Basically, when you get this item, you're not going to have any issues running out of mana at all. Really crucially, it's got Lifeline. Damage that puts you under 35% health consumes 15% of your current mana to grant a shield equal to that amount plus 100. That shield is huge. Once you get below 35%, you're basically back up to 75% health again for a few seconds. So really, really good at keeping you alive, and a fantastic item on people like Rise and Orianna who like to scale into the late game. You're not going to feel the power of this item early. So if you are building this item, really get that Tear of the Goddess rolling as soon as you can, possibly even on your first back to base. So a really, really powerful item on scaling mages. Lich Bane. Now this item is really good on champions who want to weave in auto attacks as well as using their abilities. So champions like Twisted Fate, it's really good on. Akali, really good. Zoe, really good. Let's have a look at the passive. Using an ability causes the next attack within 10 seconds to deal bonus magic damage equal to 75% base physical damage and 50% ability power. Damage is reduced versus structures. Now even though damage is reduced versus structures, if you're split pushing, you will see the towers absolutely melt before you're faced with this item. It is really good for those items, those champions, sorry, who want to live in the side lane and get those turrets down. Another item for those auto-attacking mages is Nashor's Tooth. Now this item gives a ton of attack speed as well as ability power. It actually gives adaptive power, but what we mean by adaptive power is the stat that we have the most of, i.e. ability power or physical damage, the item will adapt to where we want. So we'll always be getting ability power if we're playing mages in the mid lane. Now, when basic attack hits enemy champions, it will cause 15 plus 25% bonus physical, 25% bonus ability power, bonus magic damage. So it's an on hit, so you're getting magic damage every time you land an auto attack on a champion. So Twisted Fate, it's an absolute must if you're weaving in your auto attacks, and Kale is an absolute must. Rylai's Crystal Scepter. This item is really good against enemy compositions that might have quite a few melee champions who are looking to get on top of you, because the passive damaging active abilities and empowered attacks slow enemies by 30% for 1 second. This is a really good item on people like Morgana, on Brand, especially on Aurelion Sol. For those who do damage over time, like Liandry's Torment, each tick of damage will refresh the slow on those champions, so it can be really annoying to play into. And on Aurelion Sol, it is just so fun to see people try and run away from you when you're breathing fire down their neck but slowing them. Mwah, perfect. It also gives a ton of health, so it's really, really good for survivability, especially into those compositions that really want to get on top of you. So 300 maximum health, it comes in really, really handy as well. The Rod of Ages. Now, similarly to the Archangel Staff, this is a scaling item. So once completed, you're not going to feel a huge power spike, but every 35 seconds you will gain a stack up to 10 stacks, and every stack provides 25 health, 10 mana, and 6 ability power. So up to 250 health, 100 mana, and 60 ability power. So at 10 stacks, then that's when you'll start to really feel it. This is a really great item into enemy compositions where you think you're gonna take damage. You need survivability as well as scaling into the late game. So this gives you a ton of health and also gives you a lot of mana as well. So mana issues shouldn't be a problem. As well as that, the Eternity passive on it restores mana equal to 50% of the damage taken from champions, as well as regenerating health equal to 20% of the mana spent, capped at 25% per 25 health per cast. So the damage that you take restores mana, and the mana that you spend restores health. So a really, really good item if you think you're going into a team comp that has unavoidable damage, or you just want extra survivability. Again, a scaling item that you won't feel the effects of until later on into the game. Crystalline Reflector. This is an item that I don't see built too often, but it does, I suppose, have a niche use if you are into a enemy team comp that is full of physical damage champions. It gives you max health, it gives you armor, as well a passive. Each ability cast grants a mirror shard that lasts 3 seconds. The shard blocks 8 to 25 incoming physical damage from enemy champions and deals magic damage equal to 10 plus 3% ability power plus 1% bonus health to them. So it's a slightly defensive item against melee physical champions. So if you're in a team against a team that is full of physical damage, this could be really useful. Other than that, I don't see it built too often, but have a play around with it and see what you think. It could come in useful when you've got against a Yone, a Yasuo, an Akshan, a Lucian, and I don't know, a set support or something like that. Psychic Projector is another item that I never really see built too often, but there's a couple of champions that it can work on. Mordekaiser in the top lane. I suppose you could play Mordekaiser mid as well. Really likes this item, and as well this probably could work on Swain, but I don't see it built too often. But let's have a look at it anyway. 300 max health is really, really good, so this is really for those bruisery type of Juggernaut mages that we mentioned. Conversion. Gain ability power equal to 3% bonus health. If you're stacking health, you get ability power in return, so that's really, really good on Swain. Projection. When taking champion damage, gain a non-stacking shield that absorbs damage equal to 30 plus 10% ability power, 5% bonus health for 3 seconds. For ranged champions, the shield absorbs equal to 60% of this value, triggers every 3 seconds. So on Swain, you might not get as much value from that shield as you would on Mordekaiser. Again, I don't see this built too often, but maybe have a play with it, put it into your build, see what you think. I don't think it's that great of an item on most mages, but good to have a look. Malignance. Now, this is one of the items that has been recently added to Wild Rift. I'll be honest, I haven't seen a whole lot of mages use it a lot, but it can be useful if the enemy is stacking magic resistance and you want to get the most out of your ultimate abilities. So Scorn, your ultimate abilities gain 20% ability haste. Your ultimate is just going to be up that little bit quicker, which can turn the tide of a team fight or get a quick pick in the side lanes. Hit Fog, damaging a champion with ultimate burns the ground beneath him for 3 seconds, dealing magic damage equal to 60 plus 5% ability power per second and reducing their magic resistance by 10. Burn radius increases with damage reaching maximum radius at 800 damage. So the more damage you do on your ultimate, the further the radius of the Malignance burn goes. So this is really good in team fights. For example, like I said, Lissandra, even Morgana, it could be really, really good on to burn through those enemies in a huge team fight. And finally, Bandle Fantasy, which is another new item added to the Rift in the past few patches. This item is really good if you want to team fight quite a lot. If you're playing a mage who can get a lot of damage done in a team fight, such as Ziggs or Lux, Brand, these kind of champions. So let's have a look at the passive. Damaging an enemy champion with an active ability spawns a trap at their feet. After a brief delay, the trap deals magic damage equal to 105 plus 15% ability to enemies in it. If a target is hit by more than one trap set by the same champion within a short duration, traps after the first deal only 20% damage. So essentially it spawns a little trap underneath the person that you've damaged and deals a little bit of AoE damage to those who it is around, but can be really, really useful for an extra bit of chunk damage on all the enemies clumped up in a team fight and could turn the tide of battle. Please don't ever build this on a mage. And that is a rundown of all the mage items. Now, the top loadouts are usually a pretty good reference point about what to build and how to build your champions, but this will hopefully give you a little bit more understanding about what items you might need when you come up against different things on the Rift. Every game is different, so building the same thing over and over and over and over again won't yield you the best results. Let me know if you find this helpful, and if you want more content like this in the future, please leave a comment, leave a like, leave a subscribe. You know all the good stuff. See you in the next one.